Hello and welcome back for another Data Driven Dynasty live stream. Glad to have you guys here and watching. Glad to have the opportunity to talk about some fantasy football with some cool people. So that brings us to what we're doing today, which is going to be a mock draft. How surprising. It's most of what we do on these live streams, but the spiciness today, the difference today is that I want to check out some 10-team leagues. Some of the members in the Discord and talking on Sleeper, YouTube comments, people want to see some more 10-team comment. Have a lot of people who do 10-team leagues and a lot of people who do them almost exclusively. And so today, hoping we can check out some strategy for some 10-team leagues. To go through the mock draft and maybe see what it is that we're missing. Us 12-team connoisseurs, what we might be missing out on in the future. I am hoping and planning on doing some more kind of off meta formatting for some of these live streams, some of these mock drafts, some things like 14-team leagues, 16-team leagues, non-super flex, point per carry, things like that. Basically, probably 2 out of every 3 streams, maybe every other stream or so in which we do a mock draft, I want to throw out some different settings. So that, people who enjoy playing with those settings, they can have some content to relate to. And if you really like 12-team stuff, like standard Superflex, 12-team formatting, we get to kind of take a look through a different lens, right? Get to learn a little bit more about some different formatting, and maybe we see something that we like. So it's all about keeping an open mind, moving into, the future. And today we have David with us, and thank you, David. Says hit that like button, folks. We have a couple more spots, I believe, open in the draft. Actually, just one more spot. Pardon me. Maybe that's 2 spots. I believe that's 2 spots. But hopefully we will get the mock draft started at 7:30. That is when the mock draft is scheduled for. Let's see. Yeah, it would be super nice if Sleeper just gave me a timer, like a countdown on the draft board page. That would be so nice. If it did that for me, but it doesn't, and that is all okay, because we are just going to hang out and wait, and we have our own clocks. But if you are in the chat right now, tell me what's up. Tell me what's been going on. Want to hear from you guys. Anything going on with you personally or fantasy football wise, right? Trades, etc. I put out the latest video this morning talking about 2027 startup strategy. Was super excited to have that video go live with that content, because it was a ton of fun to make and I really enjoyed it, like making it and just talking through that strategy for the future 2027 firsts, and it's actually done pretty good in terms of views and likes and comments and subscriptions, etc., which is super nice, right? Not always what the main thing that we're going for, but it matters. Growing the channel is something that's helpful. And tonight I do actually plan on taking part in the draft, so I think that we'll have a lot of fun. Okay, let's see. Not a lot of activity going on in the chat. If if you're here and hanging out, let me know what is up, and just that you guys can hear me and that everything's all right. Let's see. Oh, there we have Joe Blocko 5 here hanging out. Yo, what is up, Jojo? So before the stream started, Joe was saying, why, inquiring about the 10-team formatting, which I think is totally fair. Because it is different, right? It's not the usual, but we're here to learn. We're here to have some fun. That's what it's all about. Oh no, poor horse. I think we all are, but the only thing to do is just to hold right now, because I don't think anyone's buying, and so you'll have some time to contemplate. But it's okay if you want to be a little quieter tonight and mourn the value of your dynasty rosters. Super depressing as we get through the previous legal things, and he avoids a major ad in the NFL draft, and he just fails the P test. Not fun. Not good for our fantasy rosters, of course, but just as like a fan of football, someone who enjoys watching the Chiefs play, it is sad. Very sad. But you can't stop people from doing what they're going to do. Let's see. David recently wrapped up a startup for Best Ball League. Anyone play Dynasty Best Ball? Different type of fun and strategy. Yeah. I was talking with one of the members. I think it was today. Unload Reload. And Sleeper was like, hey, do you play any Dynasty Best Ball? I think that could be fun. That's another different like formatting thing that I think would be fun to check out in terms of Dynasty. It is like a very different challenge. I've done like redraft best ball type things before, but specifically with Dynasty, I think it adds just another dimension to the best ball formatting, because in redraft you're just trying to win, right? Insulation and building out a team that is going to be good for many years doesn't matter, and so I feel like the best ball impact and the strategy that goes into it there is mitigated by that. But when we get into the Dynasty best ball stuff, it's like you're not only worried about the production, you're also worried about the insulation at the position, and you can get away with going super cheap at a position, but then it might pay off for a year or two, but then you could be left with no usable wide receivers, or just whatever position you go. If you go super light on something and then do the standard best ball thing of just throwing a bunch of darts at the wall, maybe you do that with quarterbacks, running backs, whatever, could leave you in a tight place. And so again, I think it really puts a different spin on it, and that is something that I would be interested in checking out. So thank you for sharing, Mr. David. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, it's easy to predict value windows for a lot of players a lot of the time. With this stuff, with legal stuff, like, you just never know. And I don't think it was greedy necessarily. It's just nobody knew. That's just how it goes. So sorry to hear that. Of course. Actually, like, so for somebody who's been super high on Rashee Rice, I have just been pretty much unable to acquire him like anywhere. I've been high on him for like a year and a half, 2 years maybe. I mean, ever since I think it's about 2 years, because ever since the end of his rookie season, I was very much like on top of the Rashee Rice like hype train, like his uptick in usage, his production, all that stuff. I was pretty on top of it, but it just kind of works out that I had him in some leagues, had to use him as trade pieces, in some, and then the one league where I still have Rishi Rice, I think that the league is like pretty much dead. Like the commissioner hasn't been like logged into the league for like 6 months or something, so it might just be gone. But yeah, so I actually like don't have I don't have much stake in the conversation, because if this league actually does dissolve, like that's my last Rasheed Rice share, so that's a shame. And that's a good point. Is just especially with volatile assets, and guys that you might want to get off of. Looking for a good deal, not a great deal, could definitely be the way to go. I mean, who's somebody like if you don't believe in Marvin Harrison Jr. or something, he's a guy that I probably wouldn't wait for the perfect deal. And it just depends. Like if I don't mind having him, I don't mind holding him, but if you're like, I don't believe in Marvin Harrison at all, and I just want him off my roster, the time when you need to sell him by is the beginning of the season, and if you wait too long, the season might get here and he might underperform again, and then his value could further tank. So I was just trying to think of like a volatile type player that holding on too long might bite you in the butt, right? And so that was just my example. Not to say that I don't, do not like Marvin Harrison. I agree, Cade. Happy Memorial Day, and thank you to all those who served. My grandfather served in the Air Force. He is passed away now, but he was a great guy, and he served our country, and so I am personally remembering him today. And back to football. We have Joe saying that he's contending this year, so in the league that he has Rice, so might just hang around and hold him. And I think that if you're contending, that's most likely the move with Rasheed Rice. Like you're probably not gonna get a big value in moving off of him, especially right now. So holding him and just using the production is probably the way to go. Let's see, and then yeah, Horse agrees with that. Let's see. That's an interesting question from Reneth. How many trades per year is average in an active league? My main league sees about half of the teams not trade in any given year, and they are part of most of the trades, 90%. That's quite a few. And that's honestly disappointing. Like, just as a dynasty enjoyer, to hear that you are in a league that is so inactive. But, I mean, I know of leagues where one person will trade 50 times. Like, basically once a week, there will be, like, a trade from one person, and that might be, like, person who trades the most in the league, but then other people trade like 20 times a year, 30 times a year, and so it comes out to like 100 trades ish a year in a league. I think that's like the higher end. I would say more like average would probably be like 30 to 40 trades in a year. So yeah, so if half the teams are not making any trades, that's like probably not a great league. Managers are probably either checked out or they're not confident enough in their own abilities to make trades. And that's another thing, is that some people are actually pretty active in the league, but they just like get in their own way about actually making trades. So that's another thing that is pretty sad. And then, of course, I agree here with David. You need to get into a Data Driven Dynasty League, because these guys are very active and they have the confidence, too, to actually make trades, right? People are just worried about taking, like, value losses, getting the wrong side of a deal, looking bad. And as long as something is reasonably fair and not just crazy. If one of the guys, in the community wants to make a trade, they're gonna make a trade. And I think that's healthier for dynasty leagues. I think that gives you more room on both sides to gain value, because if you can say, I really believe in, I'll just go back to Marvin Harrison. If David really believes in Marvin Harrison and he sends out an offer for Marvin Harrison and he's like, hey, I'm just going to give you like a little bit extra value and I want Marvin Harrison. Most of the time, the other person in these leagues is going to say, okay, you're going to give me some free value on this deal. I'll take it. And that's just really nice, right? Because if one of the managers in the league doesn't feel incredibly strongly about a player, they're okay moving off of that player, at a reasonable price. Not necessarily going to just make trades to make trades, but if you throw an extra, if you have like a slightly lower value player than Marv, and you throw on like a future second round pick, and so maybe it would only take like a future third to maybe get that deal done. You throw in that extra value, right? The difference between the second and the third. It's like, oh yeah, like I'm getting some value here. Make that trade most of the time. So, okay, Crooked Commish, nice to meet you. I'm glad that you joined. And then there is no IDP for the mock draft. Are you saying that you joined the Discord or that you joined the draft? I'm just curious, my friend. Okay, I see. You did join the draft. And it looks like we are filled up, so I will disable the link invites here so that we don't have extra people joining. There we go. And Crooked Commish, that is something else that I would like to take a look at in the future, is maybe doing just a little bit more IDP type things. That is a little bit more difficult of a format swing because, nobody knows anything about IDP who doesn't play it for the most part. And so it would be learning a brand new like format, whereas it's not that much of a leap to go from a regular dynasty league to maybe a best ball or a 1 QB or, a different number of team format here. But I'm just super excited to see what these teams look like, what draft strategies that I'm going to like in this kind of league. Remember, like every player is going to get pushed down further because of the scoring settings. And so we will have to keep our eyes out on that. Sweet. Well, we are very happy to have you, my friend. Yo, Joe, that's really good to hear, man. That was another video that I really enjoyed making, and I've gotten some good feedback from. And so that's kind of my favorite stuff to talk about, really, is the theory side of things. Like how do we play Dynasty? How should we play Dynasty? And how can we maybe find an edge over the competition? Forrest, I swear to goodness, I will kick you out of this draft if you draft more than 8 tight ends in the first 10 rounds. No, you can do what you like, and I'll just make fun of you for it. Yeah, Joe. If you were able to get any deals done, right? If you did anything based off of that video, I'd love to hear, what you did. Maybe what kind of moves you made, trades you sent, if you wouldn't mind sharing, of course. I'd love to hear about that, and I really hope it helped. Okay, well, we are very, very close. And so honestly, David, if you want to get the draft order randomized for me, I'd really appreciate it, and then we can get started. Let's see. So James says, do you like Chigakonkwo, tight end newly signed by the Washington Commanders, of course? Yes, I like him specifically because of his price. I really, really like late round tight ends. The tight end position is just always in flux, and the production of tight ends outside of, but also kind of even including the top tight ends, is pretty variable depending on the team's situation. We saw how Trey McBride had his like record-breaking season off the back of like very specific things happening with the Cardinals as a team, right? But specifically like the 8 to like 20th tight ends, all those players like I think I need to reload this. But like the 8 through like 20th tight ends, just, you don't know where any of them are really gonna score and like finish. Has a trade already happened? You guys need to let me know if this like trade is legit, or if this is something that's like left over from the previous draft. I thought I had everything fixed and figured out. But yeah, basically like that range of tight ends, I think Chig is pretty talented, like talented enough that if things go right with his situation, he could be like the tight end 9, the tight end 10 type finisher. And so I really like loading up on, you know, those players later in the draft. Not somebody that I'm like, oh, he's gonna smash, oh, he is like going to be like the tight end 8 finisher, but definitely somebody at price that I'm very happy to get a hold of. Let's see. Oh, okay, so traded some picks, and those are left over. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think oh, okay, the trades are left over. That's so weird. That is so weird, because there was a lot more trades than that, and like, so it only left like one trade. That's kind of weird. And I factory reset the league, so who knows. Thank you for letting me know though, appreciate it. Sleeper's weird like that. So okay, it changes a little bit positionally based on how people score points. And so a 0.5 PPR league, like Tucker Kraft becomes one of the best tight ends, because he scores a lot of touchdowns and he has a lot of high yardage games, and so he doesn't utilize PPR and tight end premium as well as other tight ends. Similar things with guys like George Pickens, Nico Collins. Traditionally, he's been a little bit more hit or miss, but Jamar Chase, wide receivers that utilize PPR less on average than like other players because of their big playability and stuff like that. Obviously Jamar also gets a ton of volume as well, so that plays in. But I guess like a really good example would be like George Pickens, like Devontae Adams, stuff like that. But not going further than positionally, definitely I don't think it changes much of the tiers. It's just that at the beginning of tiers, I would rather have the running backs instead of the wide receivers. And then of course, like tight end, if it's 0.5 PPR, no tight end premium, tight ends are like absolutely tanked. If there is still a tight end premium, it just depends on the premium, and the math gets a little bit weird there. But that's a good question. Essentially 0.5 PPR, if you don't get a good wide receiver, if you don't have good wide receivers, then the wide receivers are like basically like useless, right? Because a 12 point per game wide receiver goes down to like 9.5 point per game wide receiver. And we are getting started with the draft here, everybody. I like getting elite wide receivers in like 0.5 PPR, but then once we hit like the middle rounds, after the first 3 rounds, definitely want to be focusing on the running backs. But if I do have the opportunity to get a Bijan, a Gibbs, a Chan, Hampton, absolutely. I would probably take them over the wide receivers in the same tier, but I'm not going to be pushing up like running backs into the tier above based on the PPR settings there. Thoughts on George Pickens? JMO, are you here? Are you here in drafting? Perfect. Okay. All right. He is here. Getting back to George Pickens, I mean, he's just going to be a high variance player in terms of like value and production based on his situation, right? And so if Pickens stays in Dallas and if he really is like a 1A, 1B with CeeDee Lamb, I'm not sold on that like being 100% true because of like the CeeDee Lamb injury. A lot of the lack of production from Lamb came in the second half of the season when he came back from the injury, didn't look like himself. And so it just depends on if CeeDee Lamb comes back and he's actually an alpha, if George Pickens stays in Dallas, if Dallas remains a very pass-heavy, mediocre defense team. And so if you told me that Dallas was going to have a bad defense and George Pickens was like the 1A, 1B to CeeDee Lamb, and he was like guaranteed to be in Dallas for the next, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I would probably be taking Pickens over like Tet at like the end of the second round in 12-team leagues because he's just that productive and he's not that old. But on the flip side, if you told me that he was not going to be on the not going to be on the Cowboys. Sorry, I'm trying to think about my pick too. If you told me he was not going to be on the Cowboys, like after this season, then I would have him lower, right? Because then his production output would likely look a lot different. I do still think he would be productive in a different offense. He was on the Steelers where he was being mildly inefficient, like unproductive, but like the Steelers just for receivers is kind of booty. Like it's not super helpful for receivers. So I'm on the clock and I'm going to happily take Amon-Ra St. Brown here at the 1-9. And we have the crooked commissioner going Caleb Williams at the 1-7. That is very, very high for Caleb Williams, especially in this formatting. Let's see. Oh, nice, Joe. One trade I got based on value, floor, and ceiling was BTJ for the 112 Pearsall and Michael Wilson. So were you sending? You said you got BTJ, right? If I remember right. Oh yeah, it says pray for BTJ. So he got the BTJ side. Yeah, and I mean, I think that you. Unless Pearsall comes out and blows us away, exceeds expectations like exponentially, then I think you're gonna come out looking pretty good with that trade, because the 112 kind of a mid asset, the Michael Wilson, probably close to his value ceiling as well, and BTJ, this is probably his floor. Okay, man. Ooh, okay. We're just gonna go Neighbors. I'm not gonna think about it too hard. Neighbors is my highest. Okay. Okay. Drake London there at the 2-3. That is an excellent pick. I love that. And this is, of course, a PPR Superflex 0.5 tight end premium 4-point passing touchdown start 10 league. The standard Data Driven Dynasty formatting. The only difference between the regular formatting here is going to be like the fact that it's a 10 team and not a 12 team. Honestly, a little sad that I am picking here at the 1-9 position, because I feel like this is where I've been picking, like the back end is where I've been picking recently, just these mock drafts and in my own drafts, etc. And so not super thrilled to be drafting here again, but that's how it goes. Let's see. So James says, are you out on Mason Taylor after the Jets drafted Sadiq? Sort of. I am more out on Mason Taylor because he didn't do anything his rookie season. And even if they didn't add Sadiq, they bring in Omar Cooper, and the Jets are just an offense that I don't think can support multiple, that many fantasy relevant options. And then you also have them drafting Sadiq. I think that Mason Taylor is going to be on the field a lot, get a lot of snaps, but he's just not super productive. It was not super productive his rookie season. I think he's more of a good for the team than good for fantasy. More as an inline blocker kind of guy. So I'm pretty out on him. I mean, if you want to take a shot on Taylor as you move a late third in this rookie draft, but I'd actually rather have the tight ends that you can get at the late third, or you want to take them in the 20th round of a startup draft. I don't mind. Oh yes, I straight up I almost took Devon Achane with my second pick because I was I kind of want to get a running back here. And you guys let me have Devon Achane. That is so nice of you guys. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And of course, I like Achane. I like Hampton. I like Love. I like Genty. I like all four of those guys. I do like Achane a lot. He's a guy that I do believe in. And I was just I want a running back. I really like Achane. Maybe I'll take Achane at the 2-2. But I didn't have to, and it paid off. So awesome Republic here. Do not sell him. Unless you are getting a future first. Or a BTJ Marv, Zay Flowers type receiver, 1-for-1. Do not move him. His value is so bad, and if you need extra production, you can get it from somewhere else. Just leave Travis Hunter on your roster and wait for him to triple in value, he inevitably will. Whenever we get any sort of news or we see a good offensive game, right? Just obviously you can do whatever you like, but my official advice, hold Travis Hunter, okay? Let's see. Moon has extra picks. So that was on my phone on the Sleeper app whenever I went in. I think that we fixed it if you reset your draft board, it should be fixed, I think. Because again, I'm not seeing it here. The draft board looks normal, right? So if somebody does have extra picks and I'm just not seeing it, let me know. Okay. Let's see. Took Pickens in the third for that reason. Yeah, I mean, it's just an upside play, depending on his situation, right? He's super productive, and so no problem with Pickens in the third. I am probably going to do a bunch of behind-the-scenes team reviews this week and clear out the queue of the team reviews, just off screen. Do the write-ups and not do them live. I need to figure out how to do them more efficiently live. And the two things would be I just don't talk. And instead of not talking at all, because I'm not talking, I can just type, and I type everything up and basically act like I'm doing it off screen, but then I don't say much, and I just like let you guys see what I'm typing, which I also think would be kind of boring. I don't mind doing them live, but it's just like it took me like 30 minutes to 40 minutes plus per team review because I was trying to talk through everything with you guys, which is part of it, and part of the content, but it was just taking a long time. So it's that, or I need to do more rework on it. But like in that case, like why am I even doing it live if I've basically done everything off camera? So it's kind of it's something I'm working on, doing them live, because that is fun and I like doing it with you guys, and letting you guys watch the team review process. I think it just gives you an idea of how I think about things, how I approach different things, as we're going through. But yeah, I guess the other solution would be I just do not give nearly as many trade options for you guys. Like the team reviews, I give a bunch of very specific trade suggestions, right? It's not like, oh, you should target Rashee Rice and Cam Scatterbo. It's, you should send your Drake London for Rashee Rice into first or something. That's just a random, whatever off the cuff, something where I like actually look at the assets that are on your team and on the other managers' teams and put together some specific trade review or trade suggestions, and that's gotten a lot of good feedback. And then just gonna catch up with these. Oh yeah, refresh. Okay, James says, I started my last startup with May and Caleb, 104 and then 29. That's a pretty good price for Caleb where he's been going, but not. I don't really like starting out with 2 elite QBs, because then it's just hard to draft quarterback. It's not hard to draft quarterback, whatever. It's like I don't want to draft a quarterback in the 5th round, because then it's just going to make it hard for me to contend if I'm picking 3 quarterbacks in the top 5 rounds, right? And just one of them doesn't get into my starting lineup. Of course, you can make moves after that. But yeah, Caleb going here at the 1-7. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute because that's very high. And Horse said that he was going Neighbors or London, and I made it easy for him. And then, Pandora's Box agrees that it just takes a lot of time. I'm going with Jackson Dart here, and I'm very happy about that. I really didn't want to go QB at the first, second, or 3rd round here. And now let's kind of talk about like some strategy stuff, right? Now that we're kind of caught up on the chat. Jaden Daniels was my highest ranked player, just based on my dynasty rankings at the 1-9, and of course, at the 2-2 as well. And then Lamar was, if I was just going off of my rankings, I probably would have gone Daniels Lamar here at the 1-9, the 2-2. But of course, I wanted to go with the wide receivers, did not want to focus on the quarterback position yet. And I also, Achane was just a massive teardrop there. After Achane is like when you kind of get into that next bit with like McMillan, Loveland, Hurts, Mahomes, Tate, Taylor, right, stuff like that. And so Achane was just an easy pick. But even if I was thinking if players were gone, I was thinking about taking Cook there at the 3-2 to get a running back. So very happy to do that. Now, here's the thing. It's like I want to fade quarterback again, but the quarterbacks available are just so much more valuable than the non-quarterbacks. I'm not going to name too many names. I can talk about it a little bit more later, but basically, quarterbacks here are the best value. So I'm just going to go ahead and take Nix here at the 5-2. I think he's my highest ranked quarterback. He's very close, basically back-to-back with 2 other guys that I assume are going to come off the board sometime in this round. But yeah, it's just, I can't drop down like 2 tiers just to avoid drafting a quarterback. If I only had to drop like 1 tier, yeah, I could get behind that, but 2 tiers, that's too many. So, okay, first, Caleb Williams at the 1-7, crooked commissioner, my friend. I want to hear from you, and I'm not trying to be mean. I just kind of want to hear your thought process if you're still listening, because I want to discuss it. So, first, before I talk about Caleb, I want to hear kind of what's up with, like, what that decision making process was for you, and then maybe we can chop it up a little bit, discuss it a little bit. But looking at your profile picture, wearing a Bears hat there, with the C, so I assume part of it has to do with being a Chicago Bears fan. Probably had something to do with taking Caleb over Drake May. What is up, Luzatine? Glad to have you here hanging out. Hope we can have a very good time on the stream. Yeah, so the other player that I was kind of looking at here would have been Christian McCaffrey, just to add to the running back production. But looking at like Nix and Purdy and Lawrence, that like little teardrop of the quarterbacks, after those 3 guys, in my mind, there's a teardrop there. I figured that there would be a run of quarterbacks before it got back to me at the 6-9. Nice. So that is why I went ahead and pulled the trigger on Nix, even though I didn't really want to. And I do think that I will get some good value at the running back position to come back to me. And this is kind of the squeeze of like the 10 team, right? Everything is more condensed, and the tier breaks are just pushed even further down. Like Tyler Warren going at the 4-5 here to Jay Reilly at the 4-5. 4-5 for Tyler Warren is a pretty good pick, in my opinion. But that's like in a 12 team. So he is actually would be like the end of the 3rd. And so he goes right after Mahomes, before Wilson, before Ladd, before Dart and Nix. And so I probably would prefer having some of those wide receivers, quarterbacks over Tyler Warren, here in the format. And I mean, obviously, like a lot of these teams just look really good because, again, we're down 2 teams. And so my 12-team brain is like, oh man, this team is stacked and that team is stacked. But that's just not really how it goes. Because it's a 10 team. Okay, so Millpal here at the 1 spot starts out Josh Allen and then Jeremiah Love. Honestly, that's really good value for Love. I'm at a point where, and Genty, honestly, I probably would have taken Love and Genty above Burrow, above McBride, above Lamb, and probably above Hampton as well. Bowers as well, probably. Well, but here's the interesting thing, and I'll touch on the tight ends real quick in a second after I talk about Millpal's team, but just being able to go Allen Love and then stack Olave, Igbuka, Tyson, and Burden, that does look pretty good. Like, because of the 10 team ness, Tyson and Burden were there at the 5-10 and the 6-1, where usually they would both be off the board at the 5-6 turn. So that's really interesting. I feel like the 10 team factor makes it less important to get wide receiver early, to focus on getting wide receiver early, because the wide receivers available in the 3rd round are like better than in a 12 team. In the 4th round, the wide receivers are better than what you could get there in a 12 team, right? And just the farther down you go, the more it continues to be true. So that's really interesting. Okay, we are We are doing the tight end thing. Okay. I actually was hoping that Kraft came back to me at the 6-9. But we have Warren, Fannin, and Kraft here, all three in a row to Jay Reilly. The thing about the tight ends in a 10 team, the less teams there are, the more tight ends there are per team available, right? Like productive tight ends is a pretty scarce asset, right? Like the guys that actually are impact players instead of just, you have a replaceable level guy that gives you replaceable production. There's just less teams, and so it's easier to get a actually productive tight end that matters. And the replacement level guys, they don't matter at all. And the top players, so like McBride and Bowers, this actually increases the value of Bowers and McBride, because positionally now, if you want an advantage, you have at the tight end position, you have to have McBride and Bowers, because if you're starting like Tyler Warren every week, because there's less teams, there's less tight ends that are starting in the tight end slot. It's just less of an advantage to have a Tyler Warren, because the average production of the tight ends is higher, right? Like the top tight end for every team, right? That production is going to be higher. And I hope that you guys can follow and understand that, right? Like less tight ends to start. You go from the top 12 tight ends to the top 10. The top 10 on average score more than the top 12, right? And so if you want a positional advantage, you have to have McBride and Bowers. And so usually when I see drafts that are 10-team leagues with people who are really used to that formatting, the McBride Bowers guys are pushed up, and then every other tight end on the board is pushed down a little bit. And that's just a 10-team kind of quirk that I've seen over the years of playing Dynasty. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take Bucky Irving here at the 6-9. There are some really good wide receiver values here as well. Man, I'm actually kind of regretting my pick now. Just a little bit. Because I feel like there's going to be a tier drop at the wide receiver position very, 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 very soon. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to go back to some chat. Cade says, as a Caleb owner, I wish I could sell him for the 107 price. Lucine says, just finished up doing a 10-man. Jay stealing my 7 tight end and 8 round strategy. Yeah, I mean, he's blocking you. Dang, I kind of wanted AJ Brown. Dang it. That's okay. That's okay. You leave me no choice but to take the scat. I guess I'll just have to go wide receiver later, but that is not a big deal. And in a shallower format, like a 10 team, you do want to be stacking up the running backs and put into your flex spots for the optimal production. So probably not going to get a wide receiver that I like that much to come back to me at the turn, but we'll just go, we're just going to do what we can with what we got. And that's how it's going to be. Okay, I got Bijan, London, Pickens, Loveland start in a 10-man this past week. That's really good. That's very, very good. I assume you got Loveland in the 4th round, which based on his I am covering up the thing. Based on his dynasty price right now, that is a very nice value in there for Colston Loveland. I will just do this, and now I am not blocking anything. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. My nose is itchy. That's weird. But yeah, that's a good start. That is a good start. Getting London to come back around the second round, fantastic. And then also getting Pickens to come back in the third, Loveland still being there. That was good. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I like Dak plenty as much as the next guy, but just going ahead of younger guys that project out relatively similarly is pretty tough. I mean, again, in a 12-team league, the 5-4 is like a great price to draft Dak Prescott. 10-team league, not quite so much. And then, yeah, Rice, I was kind of hoping he made it back to me as well. Horse grabbed him one pick before me. Okay, I'm just covering this up a little bit too. Here we go. Okay. Let's see. In a super flex, I didn't think Caleb Williams was that big reach considering May went next pick. Williams is in year 2 of Ben Johnson offense and has a lot of returning weapons. Yeah, and so like I don't disagree with anything that you've said. It's just that none of that is something that would put Williams up into like should put Williams up into tier 1 of dynasty QBs, which is where like Allen, May, and like maybe Jaden Daniels is looking to be at. Like the thing with Caleb is that he is going to be a player that has like a high floor because of him as a talent. He has and like how he plays, right? He does add some rushing potential, but not like a high volume rusher, like a real rushing QB. And then he has a good scheme with Ben Johnson, right? Like a well-run team, that's good, and then good weapons. So he's going to be a high floor guy. It's just tough to really see and try and think about the ceiling case for Caleb because he's not an elite passer, because he's not an elite rusher. And so we look at the top like 10 guys that come off the board here. Like we have the elite, the high volume rushers who have a huge like production and value floor because of their rushing, and Allen, May, Daniels, Lamar, Hurts, Dart. And then we have the other players that are in the top 10 are like the most elite passers in the NFL. So you have like Burrow, Herbert, and Mahomes, guys that can score you like 23 plus points per game in a 4-point passing touchdown league based just on their passing like alone, right? And like Caleb is the only guy in this like very large range of QB that doesn't really hit either of those metrics. And so I don't think Caleb is going to be like Anthony Richardson and lose his job or like lose all of his value, but a year 2 quarterback who hasn't broken 20 points per game, but we're excited about, like, obviously talented, insulated. That's like a tier 3 quarterback for me. Like the description of that player, his situation, what he's done, if we just like take the Caleb Williams name out completely, like he just sounds like a tier 3 dynasty quarterback in a similar range as maybe like a Herbert or a Hurts or Mahomes. Like best case scenario, worst case scenario, maybe like a tier 4, right? Like a Nix, a Purdy, a Lawrence. But I'm okay, having Caleb Williams as like that tier 3 guy, because I also like Caleb and there's a lot of things to like. But I feel like the problem is that he's gotten like a triple value boost from like Ben Johnson. Like when Ben Johnson was hired, Williams' value shot up because we were like, oh, he's gonna be so much better now with Ben Johnson. And then in 2025, he came out and he was better. His production was better. He looked better on the field. And so he met our expectations, or like what we expected out of him moving into 2025. But then everyone was like, oh, he did better. And so now because he did better his second season, we're like raising his value more. But it's like that was already accounted for in his price. It was my understanding. And so when people are then also, so he got like the boost originally from Ben Johnson coming in, got the boost from like Ben Johnson elevating the offense, and in my opinion, elevating like Caleb Williams' production. But then that wasn't the elevation in his production and everything wasn't attributed to Ben Johnson, but it probably had a lot to do with Ben Johnson. And now we're like, year 2 with Ben Johnson's going to be even better. So it's like we're like triple counting Caleb Williams' value based on like Ben Johnson, right? He's getting like tripled up in the value department there. Man, these wide receivers disappeared. Dang. Okay. We are just going to go running back heavy then, I guess. And that's what I was worried about. I really wanted Scat there at the 7-2. I should have gone A.J. Brown or like T. Higgins or BTJ where I took Irving and then went Scat there at the 7-2. So that was my mistake here, I think. So that's my deal with like Caleb, is that I feel like we're like triple counting like the Ben Johnson effect. And again, we just haven't seen like elite rushing or elite passing from him. And like, you have to be either like an elite rusher or like an elite passer, you know, like a top 2 or 3 passer to even be like a tier 2 quarterback, honestly. So feels like he's very much being valued at his ceiling. So, you know, and again, I have no problem with anybody drafting anybody wherever they want to. Your game, you know, your fantasy team and all that, your opinions. So no problem. That's just my honest take, honest opinions on Caleb Williams here. I love Parker Washington. Man, we're not supposed to call out players before they come off the board here. Wow. Come on, James. Boo, James. It's okay. It's no worries. Thoughts on Burden going before Rome? So again, my nose, like right here, is like super itchy. I don't know. Legitimately don't know why. And we are just loading up. Loading up on the running backs here. I missed my window for wide receiver, and I don't want to take guys at the top of the next tier, so we're just going to take Chuba. I don't know. Apologies. Just, I'm like, it just itches. They go pretty close, and in a lot of drafts, I think Rome and Burden go pretty close, and it's kind of like, just who do you like better at this point? Like, it's really tough. Especially with the Colston Loveland of it all, to tease out that wide receiver room. Let's see. I like the early Shuck pick. Yeah, 7-10. Not bad. Mendoza actually went like super late here at the 8-2. Where I probably would have preferred Bucky and Scat because I have them like ranked higher than Mendoza, I believe. Like I have them ranked just before that tier of quarterbacks that Mendoza is in, with like Dak and Love. But if not, if there weren't better value fallers, I would have taken Mendoza 100%. Oh, but yeah, I also like the Shuck pick. There is another quarterback that hasn't gone off the board that I would have taken like at least 2 rounds ago. I would have probably taken ahead of Shuck or right next to him. Okay, this being let me lower this just a little bit. There we go. This being a startup date, though, if you believe in his potential and think he's only going to get better, it's better to draft him now than trade for him when he's already a star. But you're assuming that he's going to be this valuable, and Caleb Williams getting better and better does not always translate to increased fantasy production. And even if he has a spike year of like 22-ish points per game, based on his profile, like how he plays, he's not a high volume rusher, and he's not an elite passer. Even if he continues to improve, again, that might not show up in the fantasy box score as people think it's going to. And you're hoping that he improves while like drafting him over guys that have already shown that they can do pretty consistently, like what you're hoping Caleb does, you know? So it's like, if you want to take him ahead of Mahomes or Herbert, like, I'm cool with that. But we know Joe Burrow, when he's healthy, is going to, throw for a bunch of touchdowns and a bunch of yards in this Bengals offense. Jaden Daniels has a much higher rushing floor. Drake May has a much higher rushing floor. So does Lamar. So does Hurts. So does Dart. So, that's just the problem, right? Is like we're projecting out that he is going to do this and like be worth this pick when there's already guys that have shown that they are worth that like value, worth that pick slot. So that's the problem. And my opinion is, it's better to not, assuming that he does gain value, it would be better to take a player that we are more confident in retaining their value. And then if Caleb Williams does increase in value, then you can just swap him. And then you kind of mitigate the risk, right? The best way to get any player on your roster that you like is to have the best team possible. Because if your team is just really, really valuable, unless you're in a league where people legitimately will not trade, then you can always just go out and get that player that you like later, But yeah, I, appreciate you, explaining, your thought process, and, I respect it. I just personally do kind of disagree with the premise that you got going on, but I love the conversation, and, thanks for letting me know where your head's at. Let's see, scroll down just a little bit. How do you feel about Tet? I feel like his production does not match his value, but at the same time, he had the rookie year stats like Drake London and Garrett Wilson. Yeah, and I think that the fact that we've had Garrett Wilson and Drake London type players is kind of raising the Tet value a little bit, because we're like, oh, we've seen this before. He's really good. And at the very worst, he's just a younger Garrett Wilson. And so I don't mind it. It's just tough drafting the first guy in a tier sometimes. Like, Tet kind of has his own mini tier, which, I don't dislike. But realistically, it's like Tet, Tate, Pickens, Olave, Igbuka, Nico, Wilson, Ladd. Like, you have to take a first wide receiver out of that group. And like, looking at this draft, I would much rather have Ladd McConkey like a round and a half later than I would Tet at the 3-3. Same thing with Wilson. You know what I mean? And so somebody just has to take the first wide receiver in that group of players, and it just doesn't generally feel good to take at the top of the tier. So that's kind of my thought on it, is that I don't feel good about him at price, but that's basically because his price is elevated because he's just the next guy up in that tier. And in general, I would rather take the value of the guy at the top of a tier and move back into the later tier, get extra value. I'm a Parker Washington fan as like a player. I'm not sold on him crushing from like a fantasy production standpoint, unfortunately. I don't think, again, the situation is just really crowded and hard to decipher. But we're doing it. We're gonna grab Travis Hunter here at the 10-9. I need some wide receiver, and I was also thinking about taking Stroud. That's a great pick right there for CJ Stroud. It's just tough with Parker Washington. It's kind of like Michael Wilson in the way that he's either going to smash or he's like going to not, and it's just going to depend on like usage and situation and stuff like that. So it's tough for Parker Washington. I'll take Wandale. And then I'll probably just grab whatever wide receiver or quarterback gets back to me. And I'm probably not going to draft a tight end in this whole draft, because in this situation I would just wait till like the 15th round. Let's see. Let's see, a lot of these guys come with injury risks. The other side of the coin is assuming these guys will stay healthy. I mean, just assuming that one guy is like not going to get injured because he hasn't in his first 2 years, like on a small sample, like, you know, isn't great. It isn't great process, you know, like Caleb could be the one that gets injured this season and like everyone else stays healthy. But I do see the point that you're trying to make, but it's like you could get a quarterback that you get in like the 8th or 9th round to pair with a guy that you might think has higher risk, and it's like I'm either going to get 17 points per game from like the backup, or I'm going to get like 23, 24, 25 points per game from like the, you know, your actual like high-end rushing guy. And I would much rather have like the high-end production and occasionally settle for the low-end production than pay up for like more of a medium production player where like 19 to 20 points per game is fairly replaceable production at the quarterback position, to be honest. And like getting that guy that is actually going to exceed that by 4 or 5 points per game is just so much more valuable than like being super confident at like that median or like the, you know, the more average-ish production. Praying Stribling or Antonio Williams does something this year, else my flex 3 spot is going straight zeros. Well, I hope that Antonio Williams does something. Really hope. Yeah, and then again, the scoring potential thing, but not available. Again, it's like you're hoping for the high-end outcome in these to like help you win. Like Caleb might be like a fine option, you know, like a consistent producer that's like a low end to mid QB1, but doesn't really break into that like elite producer or like league winner tier. Again, it's just not that helpful to actually like winning leagues. Again, it has a lot of value. It's just not like the 107 value to me. What would I add on top of Caleb to get to Daniels? Basically, I think anything less than like a future first. Like I wouldn't add a 27 or 28 first. Maybe if it's like a juggernaut team where you're super confident it's going to be late 27 first, but I mean, probably not anything less. Like if you can throw on like 2 seconds, get that done. If you could put on like a veteran producer, if you have depth, right? Like throw in like a Jalen Waddle type, DJ Moore, Christian Watson, DeAndre Swift, you know, something like that. Those like kind of replaceable guys, I would do that, and hope that you can, you know, get like 4-ish more points per game out of a Jaden Daniels. Yeah, Jay is 4 tight ends deep here. And I don't hate the strat entirely, but it's like you have, and here's the problem with filling out your flex spots first is, right now obviously it's the tight end premium, going for tight ends in the flex. Jay has 2 wide receivers so far. Great wide receivers, but if something happens or if either one of them gets injured, Jay is now being forced to start whatever wide receiver, if he even drafts a wide receiver in the 13th. Like, that's the wide receiver he's being forced to start in his wide receiver 2 spot every single week. Probably not like a good, guy to start. Not reliable, probably not productive. And then same thing with like the running back position. Coleman could be, I like Coleman. He's a good pickup, but he could very easily be next to nothing this season in terms of production. It depends on how things shake out. And so really you've got like 2 running backs that project out for production. And again, if something happens with one of them, injury, bust, whatever, again, then you're like forced to start a running back that's like 12th round or later. And then you're also not strong at the QB position. So this kind of a team, if your wide receivers pan out and your quarterbacks pan out and your running backs pan out, your team's going to be really, really productive in these tight end premium formats for sure. But it's depending on like everyone but the tight, like everyone besides the tight ends is like staying healthy and productive and stuff on the roster. And that, as we know, that just doesn't always happen. So, and I mean, I only have 2 like real wide receivers up until this point, so I'm pretty weak at the wide receiver position. But I'm strong at QB and I'm very strong at running back. So, and then of course I'm gonna load up on the later round tight ends. Dang, it is barren. Holy cow, at this wide receiver position. I'll go Denzel Boston. That's fine. Okay. Let's see. How to deal with people letting the clock go to 0 in rookie draft. Co-commish wants to auto Xavier Thomas to these teams. 4-hour clock. Do you not have like auto draft on when it hits 0? Like, I just want to make sure I understand the situation. Like, is the clock going to 0 and then just staying at 0? And you don't, because I know that there's a setting where you can toggle on like auto picks. I would like toggle on the auto pick thing, because then if people let it hit 0, if they have anyone in their queue, then that gives them the player that was in the top of their queue, or at least it should. And then if not, it just autos the highest ADP player, which is fair, right? If you're not gonna queue up players and you're not gonna make your picks and it's a decent clock time, then that at that point that's on them for not doing it. It's so yeah, I just let me know kind of what the situation is. Let's see. Caleb plus Carnell Tate for Daniels. Yeah, I mean, that's just someone who's not valuing Caleb like the rest of the market is. And honestly, I think that might be more realistic. Like, I think that in a 12-team league, Jaden Daniels I should pick my pick. Shut up, Levi. Did you? Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, I don't want him. Okay. I didn't really want Quentin Johnston, but I mean, there was not much else going on there at the wide receiver position. And yeah. Okay. I mean, the running backs here were also pretty dire. Like, not good picks. For sure. I mean, like, there's some guys, that are like pickable. I just don't really like the running backs in this range. Like, after we hit Warren, there's definitely a teardrop. And maybe like you can count Monangai here too, but like Warren, Monangai, maybe Dowdle, teardrop on guys that you can kind of project out their volume, and it hits pretty hard. And then I just don't. Not that those guys aren't worth this price, but like a Coleman or a Corum, but it's just or Charbonnet. It's just like, again, we're kind of drafting guys at the top of a tier where I think that there are similar enough players to like how a Coleman projects, how a Corum, Charbonnet, kind of what we expect from them in like the next 2 or 3 years. Of course, Coleman is the rookie. He has like the upside to come out and like win the starting job, whatever. So, not saying that he shouldn't be valued there, but again, I think that there's guys that just in the following rounds that at the price difference I would rather have. Let's see. I traded Alec Pierce for Ferg into third, but kind of worried that Ferg is not actually good at the game. I would also be worried about that. I would not have made this trade. Awesome Republic. I am a big Ferguson denier, non-believer, however you want to say it. Like, I think he's a guy that gets targets because the ball has to go somewhere sometimes, and it just happens to be to him. I don't think he's a guy that like earns targets at the tight end position. And so if there's just other people there, he's just not going to get the ball that much. And most of his production the past couple of years has come whenever there's been injuries to like a CD or a Pickens. So let's see. In Dynasty, tight ends hold value better than RB though, right? That's my main logic for stacking tight ends. I mean, but it doesn't really matter if you hold really good value if your team is like struggles every season because you don't have much depth, and like like you're close to competing every year, but then you like lose a player or two to just the randomness of the fantasy football space, and your whole team's kind of cooked because of it. And I mean, honestly, like that is kind of true, but that's also like not super true because there's also a ton of variance at the tight end position. So, we saw what happened with Sam Laporta's value, with Kyle Pitt's value, whenever they underproduced our expectations. I mean, guys like Ferg and Kincaid that used to go higher. I mean, we've seen Gadsden's price fluctuate from like right next to Harold Fannin all the way down to the 10th. So, I mean, the tight end position, unless you are one of the like absolutely elite guys that we like, Brock Bowers, like we just saw this season where he was injured and stuff. Like if you're not producing outside of those like top guys, if you're not producing at the tight end position, you're going to lose value. And you're going to lose it pretty fast. So I think on average, yeah, like tight ends hold value better than running backs, but honestly, it's not like that great. Let's see. Let's talk about some other team archetypes here. I like, same thing with Millpal. I like the Bijan Genty start better here in this 10 team because you do get Pickens and Nico here at the 3-9 and the 4-2. And then I do just like how you have the team built out. It's pretty balanced. You get Jacobs. I like Jacobs. You get Addison. I like Addison's price here. I don't love the Jordan Love, Cam Ward kind of QB1 duo, especially pairing with Fernando Mendoza. Not bad prices, but it's like you get 3 young QBs who all probably have pretty capped production ceiling. Probably would have rather grabbed like a higher production upside vet or maybe like a higher production upside like younger guy. If I was kind of building out like the QB room in my mind, how I thought. But again, a lot young value installation here at the quarterback position, fantastic. Jamar here at the 1-3 as kind of the lone receiver here, and then BTJ Kind of did what I did a little bit in terms of like team building almost, but very light at the wide receiver position here. I like a lot of the picks. I probably would not have taken Henderson. Well, but you didn't. It's just tough because you didn't know that the values that were going to come back were going to be predominantly running back. Pardon me, I'm like hiccuping here. Just a couple of hiccups. And that's just why it's hard and why I like to lock down wide receiver earlier, because in these like middle rounds a lot of the time, the value is at the running back position. Like, hey, I would have taken Tyson over Henderson at the 5'8", and maybe one of these other receivers as well. But like Judkins was a good pick. Henderson wasn't a bad pick. Etienne wasn't a bad pick. And like obviously, you know, we're hoping that BTJ works out, hoping that Cooper works out, hoping that Parker Washington works out here. And I am up on the clock again. We're going to go with Godwin. One more wide receiver. We are getting down into the mediocre assets, so I think we'll maybe go for like another round or two, and then we can call it. In terms of the draft. So for JMO, it's just, you know, wide receiver just kind of eluded you, I feel like, on the in terms of like the value on the board, and you just kept taking the value on the board. Hopefully you could either trade out of one of these higher end, if this was a real league, of course, trade out of one of these higher end quarterbacks or one of these running backs and get like an additional wide receiver that we're more confident in. Honestly, but Hunter was a good pick at the 10-9. I'm thinking like I shouldn't have just chased wide receivers so hard. I probably should have gone with the value picks, but like Hunter was a good value. Wandale, it was like between Wandale or Adams or Parker Washington there at the 11-2 for me. And then when it got down to Boston, like none of the guys, I mean, maybe Ty Simpson was the pick instead of Boston there in terms of value, but like Boston's a late first player, and like I don't know, I'm not giving up a late first for any of the guys that came after. And then I said I didn't want to take QJ, but it was like Reed, Sutton, Pittman, Golden, or QJ. So I don't know. I do think that I do like this range of wide receivers. I do think that they are pretty good values, like the 11th to the 14th round here. I guess like the 10th to the 14th. It's more like the 11th, 12th, 13th round in Superflex, 12-team Superflex leagues. But I like this range of wide receiver, like positionally. I like the wide receivers, you know, because again, like we're going up against being drafted against this tight end range where I don't love the range of tight ends. Being drafted against these running backs that I don't really like the range of running backs. So a good place to grab some wide receivers. Let's see. Oh, that's kind of silly. That is kind of annoying. Where you like know people are in there, but they're just like letting it run down because they want someone to try and, you know, trade for their pick, like overpay for their pick or something, try and get whatever. That is annoying. Okay, I let them have their cue, but Kokamish wants to disincentivize trolling. Yeah, I mean, I think at that point you just either let them do what they're gonna do and just don't worry about it, or you change the clock. Like, I don't know. I feel like just drafting people for them, I don't know. Like, I get that they're not doing things that are good for the league, but also like forcing their picks also like isn't good. That's just like stuck between a rock and a hard place. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. Okay, I was a bit surprised you didn't want QJ. Aren't people trying to buy pieces of the Chargers offense, even if it's not Omarion, Herbert, Ladd? Yeah, and like that's why I took him. Like he was the right pick. I just I wanted more of like I wanted a safer projection because I went Hunter, Wandale, and Boston. Those guys all have, I mean, Wandale's projection I feel like is a little is median, is like safe-ish, but like especially Hunter and Boston, like very much not safe projections. And so I wanted a player that I felt like I could start immediately if I needed to, and QJ just wasn't really that for my team build, but he was the right pick there at the wide receiver position. If I didn't go quarterback, Bryce Young, Ty Simpson also would have been good picks. But like that's kind of why I didn't want to take QJ. It's not that I don't like him, it's that I was looking for something else out of that pick, but QJ was the right pick, and I went QJ. What is your favorite cookie? Oh man, I really like a good snickerdoodle. I think the snickerdoodles are delicious, but I mean I like a lot of cookies. Good chocolate chip can't hurt. I feel like the chocolate chip cookie that also has some like caramel and like sea salt, like those ones, I think that's my favorite type of cookie would have to be. Those ones are so good with like some brown butter. But I can also be down for like some Oreos and milk. Problem with value is that the only value is really the league, and the league is telling you that they value Simpson less. Yeah, there's like that side of the coin, and then there's also the side of the coin where it's like, if I can just get a good player for a decent price, then like that is not a bad thing. But I understand that, and I'm with you on that. Obviously, like Simpson did go pretty soon after my pick, and that's kind of like a conundrum, right? Because it's like, do you take the player that you think is the best, or do you take like the value play? And I've been thinking about this more, honestly, in regards to like the Caleb Williams thing, where I just have him a lot lower than consensus. Again, just what he's shown us on the field, his production, his profile, like all of that together, just it points to like a third round startup pick type quarterback, like a tier 3 type quarterback in like the Herbert Mahomes range for me. And so it's tough like valuing him so high, and like drafting him that high. Give me the good man Gouder for my pick. But at the other side of things, it's like, well, he is valued there a lot. People value him highly. And so what should I take Caleb Williams over Lamar Jackson in my next startup and just hope that I can get value for Caleb? Right? And it goes the other way too, right? Like where, you know, I like the league's valuing Simpson maybe less than he should be valued, and you know, maybe like I think that a league might be overvaluing Caleb Williams, you know, so it's like kind of the opposite side of things. But it's tough. Like, and I've been kind of playing around and thinking about that exact thing. Is like, do I just bite the bullet and take the player that has the higher value in like the general dynasty market so I can max out my value, or do I take the player that I actually believe in? So you guys let me know what your guys' thoughts are on that. and I would be pretty interested to hear. Are we ending soon? These are Jags. I just wanted to get my tight ends in, so yeah, I'll stop the draft. Let's see. Yeah, honestly, yeah, we can just stop the draft. I don't think anyone that's gonna offend anybody at this point, right? Because we are just kind of drafting jag / dart throw players. I really wanted to stack up like 4 tight ends there at the end to make myself feel better. So Crooked Commish here is coming in and validating me and my feelings. If you think Jackson is better, then take him. You know, yeah. And again, dude, I super respect like our conversation, even though we're disagreeing. You're super respectful, and I like super appreciate that. It's a pleasure talking to people who can disagree and be like, like decent about it. So very much appreciate that, my friend. Okay. Thoughts on Malik Willis, one of my favorite QB2 upside picks. So Willis is a late round. Okay. I haven't posted about it because it just didn't really fit in a good video. I didn't want to make like a really short video talking about it at the time. But basically I did like a study going back like 10 years on late round quarterbacks drafted after the top like 24 guys, or when there was like a noticeable teardrop, and that's like what late round quarterbacks are. Here, I mean, it's a little bit more spread out, but I would probably have like Goff, and if we're talking about like a more like normal-ish league with more normal ADP, late round QBs would probably happen around Willis, Daniel Jones, Stafford types. But the quarterbacks just kind of got a little depressed here. So basically, after that cutoff, looking at the QB hit rates and the QBs that like were solid producers for like a year or two, a lot of the earlier late round quarterbacks, so like 24 to 32, there were a lot of production hits in that range, like short-term production hits. But the like high upside quarterbacks, or I guess not like the high upside quarterbacks, but the guys that actually hit and had a big value jump, like your Baker, like your Goff, like your Purdy's, Jordan Love as well when he was sitting, guys like that really jumped and then in value. Those guys come from anywhere. And so I would rather go cheaper, even if I have to get really ugly and lock down like the Cardinals QB room or like the Jets QB room or something. Because one, having more upside plays is like better when you're trying to like hit on lower percentage dart throw type things, and so having just like more quarterbacks that could possibly hit and have that upside is good. And in terms of like 1 year production, I just don't want to pay up for that. It's the same thing. Like I can lock down an entire QB room in like the 18th, 19th, 20th rounds or something, or whatever it is, and get probably somewhat close production, guarantee that I have a starter because I just have all the QBs in that QB room. And even taking like 3 guys, because it's so much later, it's actually like cheaper, like dynasty value wise, to do that than take a Malik Willis. But all that saying, I do like targeting late round quarterbacks. I just think that Malik Willis is a little too expensive at this price. I like him as maybe like a QB2, QB3 play, but he is just going too early. So if I could get Malik Willis in the 14th round, then I would love that. And it's just a price thing. I think that people are just a little too excited for Willis. And he's just being like overdrafted. right now. So I don't like dislike him. There's just like, because of the price and those things, there's just different routes that I would rather go if I wanted to go cheap at the QB position. Like what Cade did here, pair Stafford and Simpson together, like masterclass. I love that. Love that move there for Cade. Because you have Stafford, the high production guy, and then you also have Ty Simpson, like the long-term value guy. So, and getting Stafford and Simpson in the 12th and 13th there is not actually that, it's like only slightly more expensive than Malik Willis in the 10th. So that is just kind of like, again, my thought. Not that I dislike him. I'm just not confident in him being one of those guys that hits in a big way and is like a big value win, and he becomes like a long-term starter at the QB position. Just not confident in that happening. Let's see. Yeah, it's tough to, Horse says it's tough to play the market when the league doesn't match those expectations, like with Rashee Rice. Yeah, like it's just, again, it's just so tough because I think 2 seasons ago, maybe it was last off season something, I was trying to trade for Josh Downs. I think it was like Paul Pure Potential really had me bought in on Josh Downs. Thank you so much, Paul. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go out. I'm going to buy some Josh Downs. And it was like, I want a first for Josh Downs. I want this for Josh Downs. And it was just like crazy what people were asking for. And then I go into my leagues where I have Josh Downs already because I had a couple shares of him. You know, he was somebody who was on my radar before that as well. And I was like, okay, well, if this is the price for Josh Downs, I'm going to trade him away. I'm going to trade him to some other people. And so I tried to trade him in these other leagues that I had him in, and it was just nobody wanted to give me anything for Downs. Like, and this is tough because it was like a while ago, but like Joe Mixon coming off of the injury was like last off season was valued a bit behind Downs. I was like, I'm going to move Downs because I need a running back. I'm going to take a shot on Joe Mixon. Thank you, Joe Mixon. In the specific league, because I'm pretty down bad for running back, and I'm just going to, like, you know, take a shot on Mixon coming back healthy. And this dude was like appalled that I was trying to send him Josh Downs. And I was like, hey, you know, I just want to get Joe Mixon. You know, I need like a guy. And he was like, well, you know, I'll trade you Joe Mixon, but I sure as hell don't want any Josh Downs. And then he traded me Joe Mixon for like a late second in the 2025 draft class. And I'm like literally like the 212, like straight up for the 212, which was, again, another thing that was valued like significantly lower than Josh Downs at the time. And I'm just like, okay, like I actually like this better. I get to keep Josh Downs. I thought I was sending you like an overpay because I had been having a hard time getting running backs. I don't think the Dolphins are making a mistake with Willis. I think that they signed a QB to be their bridge quarterback, like other teams have done with people in the past. And I don't think they're making a mistake. They signed him to a deal where they have an out after the first year that's very reasonable. And I think that they're going to lose enough games where they get to draft a quarterback in the first, you know, pretty early in the first round. So, like, I think that the Dolphins know exactly what they're doing. And I think that Willis, in all likelihood, is going to be very startable. Like, you know, like he's not hurting you by putting him in your lineup. But I see him very similarly as like a future projection to like a Matthew Stafford or like a Geno Smith, where, you know, you just really don't know if you're going to get more than 1 or 2 years of this guy as like a starting quarterback. So again, like I'm not trying to talk bad about the Dolphins. You know, I think that, you know, I think they're doing what's best for them and everything. I just don't think that they brought in Willis to like win games. Like I just don't think that's their plan. Which teams do I hate? And let's see teams I don't like as much. Varsity and Crooked, my least fave, from Derek Wilson. And then I'm just going to read the last comment. Horse says, I'm big on Shuck, and he's my QB3 in the league, but I can't sell him for anything similar to market value. We got offered Warren as my best offer. Yeah, don't keep Shuck. Keep Shuck. There was one that I was struggling with today a little bit. A mediocre team, like an average of the road team, sent me their 28 first. They don't have any 27 capital. 28 first for Tyler Shuck. I didn't really need Shuck. I have JD, Cam Ward, and Tua. Yeah, and Tua. So I had like 3 QBs without Shuck, and just thinking about my video, I'm like, I actually do like Shuck, but he's very likely a replaceable level asset. And I just told everyone, if they get the opportunity to send a replacement level asset of this value range for a future first, do it, and you'll thank yourself down the road. I was like, I should just do it. I should just do it. And I don't think it's going to be bad, like, either way. I can absolutely send that 28 first at some point to somebody who is rebuilding, get a quarterback, if I need to. But I do just like Shuck. And so that one was, like, hard to pull the trigger. But I didn't need him. I had other guys. I'll, just take the future capital. Let's see. Okay. I really like the strategy that I did here, or I guess how it worked out. I just got some guys I feel like on some tier breaks here, like Achan, tier break after that, Dart and Nix, tier break after that. And then I just really liked the Irving and Scat picks there. I feel like there was kind of a tier break, not quite, but in terms of like the running backs, after like Barkley and Price, I think that there was a tier break there to get down to like Jacobs, ETN, and then getting Henry and Chuba as well there. I also thought about Tootin. I like Tootin as well, but I just kind of picked some guys out of this tier. I like Chuba a lot. Let's see. I know a lot of people are super high on Jonathan Brooks, and I get it. My thing is like buy both of them. But I think Chuba has the first shot at being the starter. I wish I would have gone maybe wide receiver with one of these picks, but I think the team, if this was like my like a real team, I'd be very happy with it. Team 10 here, I don't remember what the name of the person was who was drafting here, especially because my face was covering it up for most of the draft, but I don't love it. Just Bowers kind of high. I like the Lamar, the 3-1, and then just the Breece Hall and the Kenneth Walker, drafting those running backs more at the top of that tier. Whereas I got like Bucky Irving and Scatterbo, guys that I think are in like a similar tier. Maybe not quite like the same as Walker. I think Walker is kind of like a tier ahead. Like separates himself a little bit from the pack there. But like if Team 10 had taken Bucky Irving and Scatterbo there, and like we just kind of switched those 4 running backs around, I think it would look like very similar. But I got these 2 guys 2 rounds higher. Let's see. Oh yeah, so that's kind of Team 10 here, and then I don't mind Smith, Brown here at the turn. Those were 2 guys that I was looking at. Probably would have rather had Higgins, Flowers, Thomas over Smith, but I don't dislike it. And then I don't like the Pitts pick here, especially since you already had a tight end, and could have gone either an additional running back, additional wide receiver, or taken like a Baker. Baker was probably the play here. Would much rather have Baker at the 9-1 than Stroud at the 10-10. So, I mean, don't hate it. Don't love it. Don't love how a lot of the picks lined up for you as well. Just like in the tiers and stuff. So, with the positions that you picked, so that's unfortunate. So that's, Team 10, probably one of my lesser favorite teams. I don't really like JMO's team a ton. Just feels very, very thin at the wide receiver position. But then at the same time, like, also not that strong at running back either, because Henderson and Judkins both, their projections are kind of up in the air. But it's like a high upside running back room, that's for sure. But I mean, elite quarterbacks, so gotta like that part. But again, I want to build out through wide receiver and running back, and the dual elite QB there is just a little tough. Probably would have gone some other, so like wide receiver and running back with the Burrow and the Herbert pick here. I don't know. I feel like somebody said varsity run. They didn't like varsity run's team. Yeah, I mean, going McBride in the second, and then getting 2 quarterbacks there at the 5th and the 7th, just kind of tough. Putting like 3 top 5 picks into tight end and then 2 into quarterback. Just really thins you out at wide receiver and running back, and that's just kind of exactly what happened. And then also going back to the quarterback position multiple times, going back to the tight end position multiple times, just feels very thin at wide receiver. Well, less thin at wide receiver. You kind of have that locked down with like Odunze, Flowers, and Williams, but very thin at the running back position specifically. Not the worst thing in the world, but yeah, it's just not my favorite. Let's see, Cade. I like what Cade put together here. I really like the Stafford Tyson pickup there. Getting Tate and Wilson here at the 3 and the 4. I think those were both pretty good picks. And I think that you were kind of hitting the end of tiers pretty well here, like getting Gibbs, good pick, JD, good pick. Tate is kind of like whatever, I wouldn't mind if you took like Pickens or Olave or something, or Cook or Hurts over Tate. So like that was just, like a whatever pick, like you could have taken a lot of guys kind of a thing. But then Wilson there, I really liked it, the 4-6. Lawrence was a good pick. Probably would have gone Purdy myself, but to each their own. Do not, same tier, do not don't want to disrespect Lawrence at all. And then just, I really like this run here with Javonte, Higgins, Waddle, Tootin, and Warren. For the 7 slot, we're almost there. 2 more teams. I feel like the Caleb Williams, Hampton, and Loveland were all a bit of a reach where they went here. So like the first 3 picks kind of reached on. Ladd McConkey was a really, really good pick. Really like the Ladd pick there at the 4-7. But then Dak also kind of a reach there, in my opinion, on like average ADP type stuff. Okay, and then like Kyron, fine pick. Marv, I like that pick as like an upside play. And then Casey, another like upside play. I like DJ Moore. I like Gadsden. I like Adams. So I don't really like Ferg. That's just me not liking Ferg. Specifically, I think the rest of your draft was pretty good. It's just kind of a lot of these first picks seemed like reaches. And so you're probably going to come out with a lower value share, probably a lower production share too. But, much respect. You getting your guys. And then getting Drake May here at the 1-8, very good. And then London there at the 2-3, like that. Ted at the 3-3. And then filling it out with some very productive running backs and Brown, McCaffrey, Barkley. Huge discount on Rice. So and then Goff is just, I love drafting Jared Goff. Multiple rounds after guys like Dak and Love go off the board. It just feels so good every time I draft Goff. He's just such a good value. So I love that. So yeah, I kind of talked through him. The tight end heavy team was bottom 1 or bottom 2 in my personal power rankings. No offense. That's just not how I like to build my team. Let's see. Derek wants to know, as far as Malik goes, if he does well, like top 15 QB well, do you think they try and build around him or still try and target their future QB? I mean, the question here is, will Malik Willis be able to make the Dolphins like a 500 team? If he cannot, then why would, like, unless he's like really good, you know, like he, again, like unless he plays out of his freaking mind, just in terms of, and the team does bad. If he plays out of his freaking mind and the team does bad, like I still think that they are just going to draft a quarterback, and just have the two compete. You know, like Willis would have to play so well that the Dolphins would no longer be eligible to get a QB that they, because of like their draft kit pick, that they wouldn't be able to draft a quarterback that they think would be better, as good or better than Malik Willis. And that would be like very, very tough with this incoming class, because it's supposed to be very good at the QB position and very deep. And so we're thinking that like there's going to be multiple, you know, 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks that are drafted in like the teens and like early 20s, potentially, depending on how things go. I think, I don't know, I haven't looked at some of the QB stuff in a while, but I usually assume that there's going to be like one more quarterback drafted in the first round. If everyone comes out, then we like initially expect, like somebody is just going to emerge and like play better than we expect. So yeah, basically like Willis would have to play out of his mind, lead the Dolphins to like a above 500 type season. And I just really do not see that happening. Like it's much less with like, is Malik Willis potentially good enough to be a starting quarterback, like one of the lower end starting quarterbacks in the league? That's a solid maybe. Is he going to be good enough to take a really, really bad rebuilding Dolphins team and lead them to a 50-50, like 500 season? I just don't think that he's going to be able to do that. He would have to be like one of the best quarterbacks in the league to make that happen, in my opinion. And if the Dolphins are bad and they have a bad record, like they're just going to draft one of these prospects. Like, you know, that's just how it's going to go, unfortunately for Willis. I do think that if he plays really well, like he surprises, another team might pick him up, or he gets to compete for the quarterback job and like win it over some like rookie prospect. But it just does not look like very good for Willis, in my opinion, like his future outlook. And you know, so Joe says the GM and head coach were with Malik in Green Bay, so if he shows enough, I can see him getting a long-term deal. And Joe says, I believe, and he believes strongly, you know, very strongly here. And again, I have no problem with anybody planting their flag and stuff like that. Like, you know, I respect it. But just my personal opinion is that the future for Willis looks bleak. The present looks pretty bleak for Willis too, based on the players around him. And you're right, we will just have to see on Willis. Again, I like later round. I like taking shots on these like upside quarterback plays. Malik Willis is just like legitimately one of the most expensive, and so that's kind of my issue. I would have absolutely no problem taking Willis if he was just cheaper, but again, he's not, because of like the rushing upside and how much people love that, and the fact that he could potentially have a like long-term, you know, a hold on that quarterback room if things break the right way. Okay. Pandora's box, what would you do with this team? May, Kyler, Brissett, and then Bijan Hampton, Rico Harvey, Kamara, Chase. I assume that's Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra, Neighbors, Lamb, McBride. I mean, what do you do besides compete, like, and contend? This sounds like you have like 6 or 7, maybe more, like 8, I think, hammers, like cornerstones. And I might, depending on what the rest of your roster looks like, I might look to down tier off of 1 or 2. If it's like, oh, we're worried about depth for this team, but this looks like a really stacked team, and I would really like to go out and win money. So that's a really good looking team. And just the fact that you haven't like mentioned, you didn't put in more players, like you mentioned Kamara, but you didn't mention any like lesser value wide receivers that like you probably just don't have any, and you probably don't have like other tight ends that are really worth mentioning, again, because like you didn't mention them. And so again, just going off of those assumptions, very top heavy team, a team that I would probably down tier off of like 1, maybe 2 of your cornerstones, just to solidify some more depth for the roster, and not make it so, basically make it like less fragile in the production standpoint, is probably what I would do, and like the best case would be to down tier off of like Lamb, because and get good value for him because he's kind of the lowest of the value, and production upside of those 4 guys, and like I'm talking like long-term production, not just like this year, because like obviously Neighbors is coming off the injury. But yeah, that's kind of what I would try to look to do with the team. The other guys that I would prefer to down tier off of would be like McBride or May, just so that you can keep as much strength as possible in the wide receiver and running back position. But again, it's just going to be whatever is the best deal you can get. If you down tier off of Chase and you can get like Drake London and I don't know, like Travis Etienne or something, like a very startable running back or like a very startable wide receiver, then I would probably, and I don't know if the value works out on that, but that's just like an example. Maybe you get like 2 startable guys going from Chase to London. I don't have my stuff in front of me, but like a trade calculator or anything, but that's something that I would look into. Is just probably down tiering off of 1 or 2 of those players. Let's see. Jonas says, I think he could play well enough to get trade interest, even if Miami sucks. And that's the thing. That's what I see as his like future upside case. I totally agree. It's just difficult because there's a lot of teams that need QB right now. And so we're like, oh, there's need, but if the 27 QB class is as good as we think it is, and there's all these guys that are drafted in the first round, there might actually like not be that many teams that are struggling for quarterback in the 2027 like rookie draft and in like the off season and stuff. So he could definitely get trade interest, right? And I feel like that's like the upside case, is that he gets traded out of Miami, or like he released and then he signs somewhere else. So yeah, it's like I'm expecting Miami to have a top pick. I am fully expecting Willis to not be Miami's starting quarterback for much of the near future, like longer than this next season, and maybe like the very start of the 2027 season, if the Dolphins like want to ease in their rookie. But yeah, that's the upside, is that he plays good, he plays well, I don't know, grammar, whatever, he plays well, and then he's able to be moved to another team. He shows enough and has a chance to like compete for a starting job. So, but that's just like not what I want to be like drafting in the 10th round. I'd much rather have Willis, Jones, Stafford, Simpson, Bryce Young. I'd probably take Willis over Tua, but that's kind of where the line is for me right now. Is it bad to take more than one wide receiver / tight end from the same team? It just kind of depends on the situation, and it depends like on the players, on the team, and on like your team situation. If you're like, I'm gonna take Marv and Michael Wilson, and whichever one is the wide receiver one, like I just have the wide receiver one for the Cardinals. I don't hate that because both those guys are pretty cheap. If you were gonna go like Rome and Burden, I don't think that I would want to do that because we're not expecting both of them to be able to be very fantasy productive in the crowded room with Loveland. And so because both of them are expensive and it would be very difficult for both of them to produce together, would not want to do that in that instance. And I think it's kind of similar for like Green Bay, where even though those guys are cheaper, like probably wouldn't want to, buy Golden and Reed or like Golden and Christian Watson, because there's a decent chance that like none of them are fantasy productive. But if you're like, I'm going to take Olave and I'm going to take Ty Simpson, like that's fine. I think that the offense could support both of them. That like both of them could be fantasy productive. If it's like Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall, both those guys are cheap enough where I don't care. If you're like Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, both of those guys are cheap enough, I don't really care. If you want to take like Nico Collins and then one of the cheap wide receivers there, like a Dell or a Higgins or a Knoll, I don't care on that one. And then like with Jacksonville, like one last example, I would take multiple guys there because I think the offense can support multiple receiving weapons. So I'm just laughing at a message I'll put on screen in just a second. But yeah, I'd be happy to draft like multiple Jacksonville receivers between like the wide receivers and tight ends, because I think that multiple guys can be fantasy productive and they're all like on the cheaper side of things. Like BTJ is the most expensive, but like he's still not even like that expensive here. And yeah, so Ben Johnson wills Caleb to like lead the league in passing yards, and just all three of them get 1,600 yards, and then DeAndre Swift gets the last 200 leftover yards there. It's, the Silver Striker. It just depends on the situation, man. For that, there's some situations where I wouldn't really want to double tap the receivers, and then there's others that I'd be happy to do. And again, it's just kind of those specific situations. Xavier Thomas, yeah, let's just push it up to 6,000 yards because Xavier Thomas has to get his own. But I think that we have exhausted our conversation for the evening, everybody. But I really appreciate it. This is some really good conversation. I appreciate everyone who took part in the mock draft. I thought it was pretty interesting to see how things play out, because it really is different how a lot of the players fall and the strategies that you kind of use. I think in the future I would probably try and fade quarterback even further, because guys like Mendoza went in the 8th, Mayfield in the 9th, Kyler in the 10th, Stroud in the 10th. So it's interesting for sure. And I don't think I would mind playing in a 10-team league. I'd probably prefer a 10-team start 11, just so that it's not quite as shallow. But I enjoyed it. Thank you for everybody for coming, hanging out, and I'll see you guys next time.